I still remember the sound first. Not the machines. Not the doctor's footsteps. Not even the hospital air conditioner humming above my head. What I remember is the silence. The kind of silence that doesn't sit in the room. It sits inside your chest. I was sitting in the corner chair, the one I had claimed for the last 3 years, my jacket folded over my lap, my hands locked together like I was praying, even when I was too tired to actually pray anymore. The world outside was celebrating December. Strings of Christmas lights glowed across the city. Children laughed somewhere, faint through the cold winter air. Cars passed. People rushed to dinners, parties, countdowns, fireworks. And I was here, in this room, watching the woman I loved sleep inside a body that refused to wake up. Her name was Emily, and for 3 long years, her chest rose and fell because machines told it to. Every night, I would study her face. I memorized every freckle, every tiny scar near her lip, the way her hair never obeyed nurses, always falling to the same stubborn side. And I would whisper the same thing, over and over. Like a ritual, I was afraid to stop. I'm here. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. People told me to stop coming. Doctors, friends, even family. They didn't say it cruelly, but they said it like reality. She may never wake up. You have to move on. This isn't living. But the thing is, sometimes the only thing that keeps you standing is the thing that doesn't make sense to anyone else. I stayed. Through birthdays, through Christmases, through New Year's fireworks I could only hear from the parking lot. 3 years is a long time to live inside a waiting room. I became part of the furniture. Nurses nodded at me with soft smiles. Janitors said evening, like we were co-workers. I watched families come and go, some crying tears of grief, others crying tears of miracles. And every night when visiting hours ended, they had to physically touch my shoulder and say, "Time to rest, sir." But that night, the night everything changed. Nobody had to ask me to leave, because something happened. Something so small that at first I thought my imagination was playing tricks on me. Her fingers twitched. Not a spasm, not the random movements I'd seen before. It was deliberate, slow, like someone trying to find a doorknob in the dark. My heart shot through my chest. Emily? I leaned closer. Machines beeped steadily. Her breathing didn't change. Nothing else moved. I laughed nervously. "Okay, I'm losing it," I whispered. "Too much coffee, too little sleep." I rubbed my eyes, looked again. Her hand twitched once more. Then again. Then, very slowly, her eyelids fluttered. I didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't move. I was afraid that, if I did, this moment would evaporate, and I'd find myself back inside the same endless night. Her eyes opened halfway, not fully focused, not present, but open, like someone returning from a very, very long journey. "Emily?" My voice cracked. She turned her head barely, but it was enough to feel like the earth itself had tilted. Her lips parted. No sound came out. Tears blurred my vision instantly. I slammed the call button on the bed so fast I almost broke it. Nurses rushed in. Machines began responding. Words filled the room like a storm. Responsive. Pupil reaction increasing. Page the doctor. And I stood there, shaking, hands over my mouth, crying and laughing at the same time. Because the impossible, the thing I had begged God for, yelled at God for, bargained with God for, was happening. She was coming back. And as they worked, checking her vitals, adjusting oxygen, shining lights into her eyes, my mind began to rewind. Not gently, not slowly, but violently pulling me backward through time like a movie jerking back to the beginning of the reel. Back to the year where everything fell apart. The year my job disappeared. The year my family lost faith in me. The year Emily's accident shattered our world. And somehow, the year that would build the version of me standing in this room right now. The man who refused to let go. Because before this hospital room, before this miracle, there was chaos, and it started quietly. On a normal Tuesday, with a phone vibrating on my desk, if we 7,000 splashed, in the place thousands and place. I had what looked like a stable life back then. A decent job, a small apartment, plans, schedules, routine. Nothing glamorous, but it felt safe. Until the day it didn't. "Can you step into my office?" my manager asked. Simple sentence. Completely harmless on the surface. But looking back, that was the first crack. I walked in. He wouldn't meet my eyes. There were papers, a printed letter, HR sitting beside him, and then the words that still echo when I think about that season. "We're downsizing, and unfortunately, your position is being eliminated." Eliminated. Such a clean word. For something that blows your entire life apart. I nodded politely, shook hands, thanked them like I wasn't collapsing inside. By the time I stepped outside the building, winter air slapped me. People walked past with coffees, laughing, talking, living normal lives. And there I was, standing still, like the world had kept moving without me. I didn't tell Emily right away. I told myself I wanted to find something first so I could calm her. But the truth? I was ashamed. Men aren't taught to say, "I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I feel like a failure." We're taught to hold it together, pretend, fix it quietly. So I tried. Applications, interviews, rejections. Weeks stretched into months, bills into stacks. Night after night, I sat at the kitchen table long after Emily went to bed, calculating and recalculating, and realizing the numbers never changed. There's a particular kind of fear when you know everything depends on you and you're running out of options. Then came Christmas with my family. We sat at the long table, roast chicken, wine, laughter, at least until the questions started. "So, how's work?" I tried to dodge, talk around it, smile. But someone, an uncle, I think pushed harder. And eventually, I told the truth. Silence. Forks stopped scraping plates. Someone coughed. My mother frowned. My father leaned back, sighing deeply. And then came the comments. Not cruel, but they cut anyway. "You should have chosen something more stable. You're married now. You have responsibilities. Emily deserves security." They never said, "You're a disappointment." They didn't have to. I already heard it in my head. That night, Emily held my hand on the drive home. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "You're trying. That's what matters." I believed her. For a while, until the accident. It was late. Rain tapping the windshield. We were arguing. Not about anything big, just stress, exhaustion, tension. She had gotten out of the car after we parked because she forgot something in the trunk. I'll never forget the sound tires make when they slide across wet road without stopping. A scream, a thud, a world, stopping, then sirens, blue lights, metal taste in my mouth. Doctors moving quickly. Words like traumatic brain injury, medically induced coma. We'll have to wait and see. Wait and see. That became my life. That's when friends disappeared quietly, not out of cruelty, but because they didn't know what to say. That's when family spoke softly to me now, like I might break if they raised their voices. That's when every night became identical. Same chair, same whispers, same silent hope. And somehow, 3 years passed. 3 entire years. People changed. Jobs came and went. Kids grew older. Others got married. But my world stayed frozen around a hospital bed. And yet, in that frozen space, something was happening inside me. Pain chipped away ego. Loneliness sanded down pride. Grief rewired what I believed was important. I learned patience, not from books or podcasts, but from counting breaths, one at a time. I learned faith not from sermons, but from showing up, even when nothing changed. And slowly, life began to find cracks in the darkness. A friend offered me a job opportunity. Not glamorous. Not what I studied for, but it grew. Promotions, to raises, respect. I learned to work harder than I ever had before. And my family, The same ones who doubted began to see something different in me. Not success, not money, but resilience. They apologized quietly in ways only families know how. More hugs, more support, more presence. Piece by piece, life rebuilt. But every victory still led me back to the same room, to the same woman, to the same whispered promise. I'm here. I'm not giving up. Which brings us back to the silence breaking open, to the miracle unfolding, to the moment nurses rushed around us, and Emily's eyes truly focused on mine. A soft tear rolled down her cheek. Her lips parted. This time sound came out, faint, fragile. But there, she whispered, you stayed, and I collapsed onto the bed, laughing, crying, thanking God like a madman, because after the longest winter of my life, a new year was finally beginning. Not the kind that shows up with fireworks, but the kind that arrives inside your chest, slowly, warmly, like sunrise creeping across snow. And, somehow, I knew everything that broke me had been quietly building me for this moment, for this year, for the start of the best chapter of my life. I used to think years were just numbers, a page on the calendar, a date you flip past. But that year felt like it refused to end. Days melted together, nights stretched forever, and somewhere between all of it, I started to lose track of who I was. The hospital became my second home. I learned the rhythm of machines, the soft, rhythmic beep, 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 her heartbeat. The nurses started greeting me by name. Morning, Daniel. Coffee again? You should get some sleep. Sleep. That word stopped meaning anything. I slept in parking lots, in waiting rooms, with my head against cold window glass. I brought books but never read them. I brought headphones but never pressed play. I just sat there, talking to someone who couldn't talk back. Hey, love, it's me. I talked about everything and nothing, the way the sky looked, what the doctor said, what I had for breakfast, what I wished the future still held. And every time I waited, as if somehow her hand would squeeze mine. It never did. Outside the hospital, the world kept moving. Bills stacked up on the kitchen table, red letters, final notice, phone calls that began politely, "Sir, we're just calling to remind you," and slowly turned sharper. "Sir, we need payment today." I sold my TV, then my gaming console, then my tools, then my car. Piece by piece, life shrank. My family watched from a distance, concern mixed with disapproval. My mother would sit at the kitchen counter, wringing her hands. "Sweetheart, you cannot live like this forever." My brother said it less gently. "She's gone, man. You're destroying yourself." Gone. That word burned. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just went quiet, because in my chest, some stubborn part of me whispered, "No, she's still here, not gone, sleeping, waiting." And if she was fighting in silence, then I would fight loudly. For both of us. But hope wasn't always easy. Some mornings I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man looking back. Unshaven, eyes swollen, clothes wrinkled. I smelled like hospital air and cheap coffee. I remember one night, in the dim bathroom of that tiny apartment, I turned the faucet on and let the water run over my hands. I whispered, "I don't know how much longer I can do this." And the thought scared me. Not because I wanted to give up on her, but because I realized I was disappearing, losing myself inch by inch. Then the job disappeared, just like that. The company downsized. They called me into an office. A polite smile, a printed paper, a rehearsed apology. Unfortunately, due to restructuring, my ears rang. I nodded, shook hands, walked out with a brown box and 1,000 unanswered questions. How do you fight for someone when your world keeps shrinking? How do you stay strong when every door closes? That night, I sat in my car outside the hospital Hands on the steering wheel, forehead resting on it. And I cried. Not soft tears. The ugly kind. The kind that feel ripped out of your chest. Anger, exhaustion, fear, all tangled together. But when I finally walked back inside and stood beside her bed, I felt something shift. Not in the machines, not in the room, inside me. I looked at her face, still, peaceful, frozen in time, and I whispered, I will not let this be the end of our story. That night I opened my laptop, job sites, applications, forms, dozens, hundreds, rejections. Weeks passed, then months, and then the message arrived. Not a big opportunity, not glamorous, but it was work, harder work, longer hours, lower pay at first. But the man interviewing me looked into my eyes and said, I like how you don't give up. He didn't know why, but I did. And slowly, brick by brick, I rebuilt, paid one bill, then another, saved a little, breathed, just a little. And something surprising happened. My family started seeing it differently. My mother hugged me one evening, and her voice cracked. I didn't understand, but I'm proud of you. My brother clapped my shoulder. You're tougher than I thought. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the crazy one. I felt anchored, still tired, still scared, but grounded. Because even when life took everything, even when the world whispered, let go, I chose, hold on. And through all of it, I never stopped talking to her, reading to her, playing our favorite songs, telling memories. Sometimes, when the room was quiet, I'd swear her eyelashes fluttered. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. But it was enough to keep me moving forward. One step, one day, one breath, waiting for a miracle, without knowing if it would ever come. I used to think time heals everything. It doesn't. Time only gives you the space to decide who you're going to become while the storm keeps hitting you. And that final year, the year before, everything changed again, was the hardest one of all. The doctors had already warned me. We don't expect any significant change. Those words echoed in my mind every time I walked through the automatic hospital doors. The smell of antiseptic, the quiet hum of machines, the soft beeping beside her bed. 3 years. 3 years of one-sided conversations. I talked about the weather, about work, about the new recipes I tried and ruined, about her favorite songs I still played in the car because silence made me feel like I was disappearing. Sometimes I read to her. Sometimes I just held her hand. And sometimes I cried so quietly the nurses pretended not to notice. But I never stopped saying one thing. I'm still here. And I believe you're coming back. Even on the days I didn't believe myself. My new job was demanding. Meetings, reports, deadlines. People saw me smiling again. They said things like, you're so strong. You're inspiring. I don't know how you do it. But strength doesn't always feel like strength. Sometimes it feels like holding the world together with shaking hands. One night, after a brutally long day, I drove to the hospital and sat beside her like always. But this time, I felt empty, not angry, not hopeful, not devastated, just hollow. I stared at her face and whispered, if you're tired, you can rest. I'll be okay. And the moment I said it, I broke because I realized I didn't actually know whether I would be okay. I started therapy, not because I was collapsing, but because I finally admitted I could collapse. And the therapist asked me something simple. If she woke up tomorrow, who would she find? Not the man who lost everything. Not the man surviving on guilt and fear, but someone who had grown. Someone who fought for his life, not just hers. That question changed me. I started going for walks, started journaling, started reconnecting with my family, really reconnecting, not pretending. Forgiveness took time, but slowly the bitterness faded, and just like my career, my relationships began to rebuild. I didn't move on. I moved forward. The city lights flickered with holiday decorations. People everywhere were talking about resolutions, fresh starts, new beginnings. I stood in the hospital room like I had hundreds of nights before. Snow pressed gently against the window, like the world itself was whispering. I held her hand. I told her everything I had learned about patience, about faith that doesn't always feel magical. Sometimes it feels like stubbornness. I leaned close and laughed softly. You know, this was supposed to be our worst year, but somehow it built me. I kissed her forehead. The clock hit midnight. Nurses celebrated quietly down the hall. And then it happened. A twitch, barely noticeable at first. Her fingers tightened just slightly around mine. My heart jumped into my throat. The monitor rhythm changed. Not loud, but different. Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, gently, as if waking from the world's longest dream. And then she looked at me. Not fully aware, not fully present. But there, tears hit the pillow before I realized I was crying. I pressed the call button, my voice shaking. She's awake. She's really awake. Doctors rushed in. Voices, lights, careful instructions. But all I saw were her eyes. Confused, fragile, alive. She whispered, barely audible, "You stayed," and I laughed through my tears. Always. Recovery wasn't instant. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were months of therapy, of memory rebuilding, of learning how to exist together again. But this time, we weren't trying to survive a collapse. We were building something new. Not the life we had before. Something stronger. Something earned. And every New Year's Eve since, I think about that moment. The room, the snow, the feeling of life returning. And I remember this. Sometimes, the year that feels like the end is actually the one preparing you for your beginning.